Welcome to Spain, to the Olympic city of Barcelona, and to the Formula One World Driving Championship. Open the picnic basket and relax, because it never rains in Spain. Rain was the story of our most recent race, amidst the glory of Monaco, where Michael Schumacher started his Ferrari from pole. Rival Damon Hill beat the German to the first corner, and then we entered the twilight zone. Reigning double world champ Schumacher hit the fence. Runaway points leader Hill lost an engine while leading the race he most wanted to win, the one his father had won 5 times. Hill's teammate, IndyCar champion Jacques Villeneuve, ran afoul of the scourge of street circuits, traffic. Sweeping through the carnage came Olivier Panis in his Ligier to claim the first win for the team in 15 years. The first for a French car and driver in the Principality of Monaco since 1930. Now we journey to Spain, where Hill sits on a record pole. Villeneuve hopes to restore the promise of his early season, and Schumacher carries the hopes of Ferrari. And remember, it never rains in Spain. Welcome indeed to sunny Spain, where it is raining heavily. Hello again, everyone. I'm Bob Varsha. Welcome to round 7 of the Formula One World Driving Championship, the Grand Prix of Spain. We're at the Circuit de Catalunya in extreme northeastern Spain in the independently minded Catalan region. Barcelona once hosted perhaps the most beautiful Grand Prix park circuit of all time in Montjuic Park. But a fatal accident in 1975 meant the end of Formula One in the Barcelona area until this circuit was built in 1989, and it is a beautiful one. Joining me once again this weekend, Derek Bell. Derek, interesting times for the Benetton team.
Yes, certainly, Bob. Good morning. Yeah, there's a lot of controversy in the paddock around the Benetton team. They've had a very, very miserable season so far. One mustn't forget that they've won the World Championship the past 2 years with Michael Schumacher. They had 3 wins last year, 1 second, 1 third, and mounted up 48 points. This year, no wins, 1 second and 2 thirds with only 18 points. And of course, they won the Constructors' Championship last year. The rumours abound, of course, are will Benetton replace their drivers? We have Jos Verstappen, who currently is at Arrows. You have Eddie Irvine at Ferrari. Well, he's not going to move if he's got any brains in his head. Salo at Tyrrell, he could move. Frenzen, of course, is in the great demand for everybody. Of course, young Ralf Schumacher in Japanese Formula 3000 is very possible that he might go and drive for Benetton. But we'll have to wait and see. Let's see what happens. But I think the drivers should stay just where they are.
Well, according to Flavio Briatore, the team managing director, that's just what will happen. Although he acknowledges that he has been asking about the availability of the drivers you just saw. We asked him earlier in the weekend if he plans to make a change.
Now, if I ask around, no worry, nobody know that. And it's completely untrue. And I have Jean and Gerard, and I believe I had the 2 most strong drivers in Formula One. No way I change my driver.
So it remains to be seen what will happen to the Benetton team. His drivers are on 2-year contracts. This week, James Allen, in his off-track buzz, talks with a driver with a very different perspective. Here's James.
We talk all the time to drivers who are at the front of the Formula One grid. But what about a driver who's at the very back of the grid, struggling to be competitive? Andrea Montermini, you're often at the back of the grid. You're a very competitive driver. What is competitiveness in Formula One?
Competitive is to have a very nice car, like Williams, Benetton or Ferrari. At this stage, Formula One is good only when you stay on the. You can be faster, you can be really competitive if you stay only in one of those teams. And the only chance that you have when you stay on the back is to demonstrate to all the people, all the team manager, that you are driving with they know that you are driving with not a very competitive car, but you must demonstrate that the maximum possible with your equipment. I'm pushing very hard, also because when I was Ferrari Formula One test driver, together with Prost and Alesi, and the third driver even in that year, I found a lot of chance to be competitive, even in Formula 3000 when I was vice champion.
You mentioned being a Ferrari test driver, of course. You grew up in Modena, didn't you? You grew up round the corner from Ferrari. Did you dream as a small boy you would drive a Ferrari one day?
For sure. I born 5 kilometers from the Ferrari factories. So you see, I can see that all the Ferrari guys driving and watching from the outside every morning. And from my house you can hear the sound in the morning when they're testing.
You raced in Indy cars for a couple of years and you had some great results there. Were you disappointed that didn't follow through?
I'm quite disappointed because I just have quite a problems with my team manager at that point. But I was very happy when my first race basically was in Detroit, and I came 6th in qualifier, 4th in the race, just in front of Bobby Rallen, just behind of Mario Andretti. That I was obviously it was my dream to watch in the TV on when I was children.
Andrea, do you enjoy kart racing? Did you do it when you were a kid?
Yes, I enjoy a lot. Obviously, my family that didn't help me a lot because they had scared that one day I maybe I should be a Formula 1 driver. But now they are very now they're pushing me all the day. They are my first fans.
Thanks for talking to us.
Oh, thank you very much.
And thanks for the race.
Thank you. Thank you to you. Very nice.
A bit slow. Too fat.
All right, thanks, James. Adding to Montermini's agony, the fact that he is not qualified for this race. We'll be back. The Formula One Grand Prix of Spain is brought to you by Eagle and the exciting Eagle Talon. Put our performance and technology to the test. Welcome back live to the Circuit de Catalunya, where the grid is being cleared in anticipation of the start of the Grand Prix of Spain. Bob Varsha along with Derek Bell with you. Let's take this opportunity to check out the starting lineup. On the pole for the 15th time in his career, Damon Hill in the Williams Renault. His lap averaging 131.115 miles per hour, but it'll be a lot slower in the race, starting alongside his teammate Jacques Villeneuve, who had a big engine explosion in Saturday practice. On row 2, Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari, who says the podium is all he can expect with the Ferrari in the wet. Next to him, Jean Alesi, all 4 cars underneath Schumacher's 1995 pole. On row 3, Gerhard Berger in the Benetton and Eddie Irvine in the second Ferrari. On row 4, Rubens Barrichello in the Jordan Peugeot and Olivier Panis, his best qualifying performance of the year. On row 5, Johnny Herbert, who out-qualified his more celebrated teammate Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Sauber Ford, next to Mika Hakkinen in the McLaren Mercedes. On row 6, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who had a huge crash in the wet morning warm-up, but his Sauber is on the grid alongside Mika Salo in the Tyrrell. On row 7, Jos Verstappen, very much the man of the moment for the Footwork Hart TWR team, alongside David Coulthard. The McLaren Mercedes team says they have no grip this weekend. On row 8 will be Martin Brundle in the second Jordan, who celebrated his 37th birthday on Saturday. Ukio Katayama will be at his elbow in the Tyrrell Yamaha. Row 9, Pedro Diniz in the second Ligier, alongside Pedro Lamy in the Minardi. On row 10, our last row, Giancarlo Fisichella in the Minardi, and the Brazilian rookie Ricardo Rosset struggling to come to terms with the TWR Arrows Hart. The cars that did not qualify, the 40 Ford team of Luca Badua and Andrea Montermini, who fell afoul of the 107% rule and were simply not quick enough. Derek, let's talk about the racetrack.
Well, it's a very interesting circuit. It's 2.9 miles back to a real race course again. They're doing 180 miles an hour down past the pits, through the Elf curves, very difficult 6-gear corner as they come into it, and then up the hill, up to Renault, across to Repsol, down through there. They're pulling sort of 2.73 G as they come down there. Very important section from Campsa through to Bank Sabadell. Very important to get the car just right through there, and then down the hill, back across the start-finish line. A very bumpy circuit. but nonetheless not as bad as most. And the drivers love the circuit. It's a very safe circuit, and we hope to see a very exciting race.
Take a look at our weather conditions. Obviously, the most important one, the fact that it is raining heavily. Temperature about 57 degrees, a light breeze blowing. The entire field on Goodyear's Aquatro rain tires, not the deeply grooved monsoon tires. That, however, is up to the teams, and we may see a change once we get underway. Past champions in the Grand Prix of Spain, Michael Schumacher last year. Otherwise, all Williams from the first race here at the Barcelona circuit, beginning in 1991 when Nigel Mansell won. Before that, the race was in Jerez in southern Spain. Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna went well. And we saw Mika Salo's Tyrrell being pushed back into the garage. If his backup car is ready, he'll have to start from the pit lane. They toyed with the idea of a pace car start, but it appears we will have a standing start. When the lights all go out, we are underway. So turn up the volume and enjoy what should be a most dramatic beginning to round 7 of the Formula One World Championship. This is the Grand Prix of Spain. The field is in position. Up come the revs. Good start for David Hill on the left. Villeneuve slower to get away. Jean Alesi moving forward, but he is covered briefly by the rooster tail from Hill's tires.
Alesi's down the inside there. In fact, I think he might have taken Hill for the lead as he came through, but we'll see soon. No, Hill is actually right there, but Alesi's close behind him, and I think I saw Villeneuve's in the lead. I apologize, couldn't see the numbers, can't think why. The Ferrari of Schumacher seemed to drop back dramatically at the start. He had an atrocious start to the race. He didn't have a good start at Monaco, but they seem to think that they could have fixed it, but they haven't fixed it for here. Looks like Barrichello is well up there in his Peugeot-engined Jordan, doing a great job.
Now this is a roll of the dice. The track is like a hockey rink, and as you can see, the drivers cannot see where they are going if they are in with someone's slipstream. It was Jacques Villeneuve making the brilliant start. And there you see someone already having problems. There's debris. I see a piece of debris on the racetrack that Mikio Katayama came across, so someone is off. I believe it was one of the Minardis. Yes, it is. It looks like Pedro Lami's Minardi is off on that very quick front straightaway. This is just at the pit out, so he didn't get very far at all.
No, it looked like there was another one in the bank at another turn as well, but it's very difficult to see in these conditions. Just remember, we've probably got a much better view than these fellas have. Anybody behind Villeneuve has got a terrible view. Villeneuve's made a wonderful start, and of course is really making up for it, and he can see just where he's going.
Listen to the engine revs. To be very gentle with that throttle. A quick look at Damon Hill, presently third behind that man, Jean Alesi.
Yes, then, although we'll listen to the revs, you're not going to hear them using maximum revs. They're going to be, and then we have a McLaren in the wall.
That's David Coulthard.
He looks like he's taking off his knee pads. I thought he had a sore leg, but McLaren's really having a miserable time.
And there's the Minardi of Pedro Lamy on the left. I can't imagine that they crashed together. Lamy started well behind him, but he may have come thundering up from the back and gotten involved. Meanwhile, there is Giancarlo Fisichella in the other Minardi with obvious front-end damage and a flat left front tire. Those two teammates for the Minardi group collided with one another on the opening lap at Monaco 2 weeks ago in the wet. Their team owner, Giancarlo Minardi, was absolutely livid with his drivers.
He seems such a pleasant-mannered man, and it feels like there's so much cohesion in the team, and then the two drivers go and pump one another. Very, very unfortunate. But look at Alesi all over the back of Villeneuve. Remember that Jacques is not used to too much wet racing, and it's quite a handful out there. He drove a pretty darn good race in Brazil in the rain, but here we are. We have one of the Ligiers.
That's Panis. That's Panis, the winner in Monaco, climbing out. So once again, a wet start to a Formula One race means heavy attrition in the opening laps.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult for these guys. They cannot see a thing. We're above them, remember. We're looking down onto these cars. They're right behind. All right, there they can see, but as soon as they get some speed, those rooster tails come out of the back, and they cannot see a thing. Look at Alesi flicking the opposite lock.
Here's another look at the start. On the left is Villeneuve. On the right is Hill. You see Gerhard Berger jumping around one of the Ferraris. Watch the third car in the right line. That's Berger going around Schumacher. Ferrari has had a terrible time getting their clutch to work at the starts. He said that was his problem in Monaco 2 weeks ago, where Damon Hill out-dragged him down to the Saint-Devote corner.
Oh,
there's Eddie Irvine off.
That's not good for Eddie, off so soon. Oh, he's still running. Thank goodness for that. He didn't go into sand trap. Oh, no.
He needs four-wheel drive.
On the grass. He does need four-wheel drive. They've got everything else but four-wheel drive, these cars. Villeneuve can still pull away from Alesi through certain sections of the track, but Alesi catches him under braking for some of the turns. It depends really. Some of these cars, they will have softened up quite a bit. I think they had to take a big gamble at the start. Is it going to dry out? Now, when you look at the skies before the start, it certainly didn't look like it's going to dry out at all. However, they are on their wet tyres rather than monsoon tyres. Now, somebody with monsoon tyres right now could be streaking away. But of course, there's a very good chance, having had 20-odd cars going around for an hour or so, that you're going to get a dry line. See, Villeneuve's not even using all the track there. He's looking for the drier spots, and invariably there'll be some dry spots on the outside of the road where there's some cambers, as there is a bit of camber there. If you get up on the higher spots, obviously it's going to be less moisture. You can see it's drier on the outside there as Villeneuve comes through. He's got to pick those drier areas to run into. And of course, in places you do get the water running across the track. However, I would say that there doesn't seem to be any situations on this track that I've seen so far where there is actually water cascading across the track. It seems to be a very, very fine surface, and I mentioned bumps earlier. In fact, it's more like waves they have. Here we have, looks like one of the Jordans. Oh, there's another car. Who is that spinning? Is it another Jordan?
No, that's looks like Johnny Herbert.
Johnny Herbert, keeping his foot in it. Of course, remember that when they get on the sand today, it's very, very wet. So there's a fair chance, keep your foot in it, you can get out. And Johnny's doing his darndest to get out of there. He's somehow got to take a left here and get back on the grass. If that was dry, he would still be stuck there. But there, oh, and it looks like the, oh no, the Ferrari. I thought, woohoo! I thought that Ferrari was going to come out and collect him.
Jacques Villeneuve hoping to atone for his collision with one of the 40s 2 weeks ago in Monaco, leads the race 1:52.182. Contrast it, if you will, with his time in qualifying at 1:21.084.
Now this isn't the view that Jacques has, this is the view that we have. We're getting all the crowd off the road and the rain on the screen. He has actually he's sitting well down in the cockpit, and the water flow that is actually flowing over his head. It's only at very low speeds that he'll actually get it on his head.
There is a lot of water on the racetrack. You can see the wake being kicked up behind his tires. Abominable conditions here as Villeneuve opens up a 2-second lead over Alesi. Now, Alesi is renowned as one of the better drivers in the wet, but he still says that the Benetton is a little bit darty, even in the best of conditions, so he's going to struggle a bit with it. And note that the Ferraris were very slow, at least the surviving Ferrari of Eddie Irvine 2 weeks ago at Monaco was very slow. It held up a long train of cars in wet conditions for a long time, so Michael Schumacher no doubt has his hands full as well.
Ooh, getting a little bit of lock as he goes in there. Oh, Hill's off the road on the dirt. Is he going to keep it out of the sand? Just about keep the engine running. He's slowing down. No, he's gradually pulling back on the track.
Close moment there for Damon Hill, who comes into this race with a 21-point lead in the championship over this man, his teammate with Williams Renault, Jacques Villeneuve. On to the front straightaway they come. In the Williams pit, everybody looking for a little protection, and now they head for their positions. Could be something happening here in the Williams pit. We'll be back live to Spain in just a moment. Welcome back, where heavy rain continues to fall in Barcelona, Spain. As the Grand Prix continues, Jacques Villeneuve leads Jean Alesi. Damon Hill started third but went off the racetrack. And Michael Schumacher has slipped past him. Let's take another look at the start. Now, I had assumed that Damon Hill would take the inside position, but Hill was actually on the right, on the outside, and Jacques Villeneuve gets the great getaway with Jean Alesi just behind him. Hill slotted into third with Gerhard Berger fourth. But then the rain began to take its toll. Hill went off the racetrack and back on again. He presently runs in the fifth spot.
Yes, you saw him just come in the turn just now when we saw him going off the road, and he just I would imagine just locked that left-hand brake up just enough that he couldn't turn. You saw him putting some opposite lock on, and then he was just a passenger until he got on the grass. And in fact, once he got on the sand, it actually helped him, and he could then steer and drove himself back on the road again.
Now note the lap times for Michael Schumacher, who has just set fast lap of the race thus far. He is going much quicker than the leaders.
Yes, some good full second quicker, but of course that is interesting to note because they weren't at all happy in the warm-up this morning, and he said the Ferrari wasn't handling at all well, and they're going to do some pretty dramatic changes. It looks like they've done it, but remember, it takes you a couple of laps. It's not like Schumacher, it probably takes him a couple of corners, but most normal people, it takes a couple of laps to get used to the changes that they've done on the chassis. And in fact, you can see from Schumacher right behind there in third place, he is streaking up on them. This will make it really interesting with Schumacher and Alesi. He's catching them right. I mean, Schumacher wasn't in the picture just now. He was way out of shot in like 6th place until Hill had his excursion. Hill, we haven't seen him in the pits, but we noticed that the pit were preparing themselves for him. We saw Schumacher last year in those dramatic drives. He had that amazing, outstanding drive he had at Spa last year when he actually overtook Damon Hill when he was on slick tires and Damon was on wets. So we know that Schumacher is capable of anything. But we were disappointed with the Ferrari, and I'm sure he was. In Brazil, he had a dismal race there with the car not handling at all well, and we saw, oh, and here goes one of the Jordans off the road, but he should be able to keep it together, keep those wheels turning, like just keep it churning it up, rather like a scrambles bike going through deep mud. Just keep those wheels spinning and it'll keep going as long as it doesn't get stuck on its belly in the bottom. Then he dives back up on the road, hope nothing's coming.
That was Martin Brundle, who turned 37 on Saturday and continues to struggle with a lack of rear-end grip on the Jordan.
He had grip at neither end there, actually, Bob.
Absolutely. Villeneuve, Alesi, Berger, Schumacher, and Hill. Now, word for the pits is that Damon Hill had considered pitting to have the car checked over after that off-track excursion, but he elected to stay out. So the mechanics will head for the safety of the garage once again.
Thing is, in the wet, there's no way of really telling if something has been damaged on the car, but you generally can tell when you make an excursion. If you hit something hard, you can hear by the bumps, and Damon seemed to slither off very, very quietly onto the grass and just took very, again, lightly to the sand, and that was all he did. So one assumes he didn't damage anything. Basically, the damage would be to the front spoilers if he did anything, because the rest of it's pretty flat apart from the step underneath, and they'd all like to get rid of the step anyway.
Again, Alesi tightening up, and there is Schumacher, who is right behind Alesi, closing up rapidly. Of course, passing is much different than catching.
But Alesi just could do well without Schumacher behind him. We saw Schumacher go round him at the Nürburgring in the Grand Prix last year, around the outside of Alesi in the damp. Phenomenal overtaking maneuver. Well, it's great to see 3 cars dicing at the front, and I'm surprised they're so close in these conditions because they cannot see very much, that is for sure. You'll notice the way Alesi pulls out of the slipstream so that he can have a idea of where he's going. You can see as he goes down there, he's well out to the right-hand side of Villeneuve as they come down the straight. Look at Schumacher's right behind Alesi, and Schumacher looks to the inside, but of course there's no way, because remember, he's actually trying to outbrake Alesi in a wetter line. There's far more water out there, and therefore he has much less grip.
Well, let's update that situation with the cars out of the race. We are told now from the corners that David Coulthard, in fact, had a combination crash with both Minardis. So the Minardis once again find themselves out of the race on the first lap in the wet, having come together. And this time, David Coulthard in the McLaren was also involved. Schumacher has a doubly difficult task now trying to pass Jean Alesi, because he's got to find a clear piece of racetrack and he has to be able to see where he's going. One thing about the rain, it makes it easy to keep a man behind you. All you have to do is take away his vision. Climbing the top of the hill, and a very fast pair of downhill right-hand sweepers. Of course, not nearly as fast in these conditions as they would be. Very bravely flown helicopter overhead. Get a look at Schumacher trailing Alesi.
You can imagine that Schumacher's looking to find some nice grip around the circuit. He's looking to find an area where maybe he can get by Alesi with less trouble than he might have in other places. Looking for the easiest place to maneuver past him. And looks like Hill's off the road again. He's not having a good day at all.
But he kept the fire.
Looks like he didn't damage the front of the car. Somebody swept by him there while he was coming back on the track. So he is falling back and back and back. It does seem that when he has a problem, poor old Damon, he just seems to go backwards. He's not having a good day at all.
As you can see, this group of three has broken well away from the pack. Schumacher looks down the inside. So what do you do at this point? You make a desperate lunge, or do you hope the conditions will improve? Perhaps try to pass him with a quicker pit stop?
Well, you can see that the Schumacher's going around the outside of the corner. It's something a lot of us do. I say us, meaning drivers generally. Often on the outside, there's less rubber on the outside of the corner, less oil out there because people haven't been running, so you can drive around there and get more traction. And you can see he almost runs with a lazy. A lazy's on the correct line, and Schumacher's going the long way around. But of course, look, here he goes. He's down the inside. He's got him. Beautiful move, a beautiful move. He swept round. He showed a lazy he wanted to go by, and did it.
So Michael Schumacher answers the question of how he would attack. Now a lazy goes on the offensive. Once again, we have a situation much like the closing laps at the Nürburgring in the drive. Villeneuve with the world champion in his mirrors. Now here's Damon Hill going off for the second time, under braking for a left-hander on the infield. Tough to keep the engine running, going backwards like that. He was able to dip the clutch and keep the fire. He is back out, but now back in 6th place unofficially. And now Schumacher bidding for the lead from Villeneuve.
Yes, he's doing the same, pulling the same maneuver on Villeneuve that he did on Alesi. He's looking at, oh dear, not a good place. But he's looking at this different line around the corner, which gives him more momentum coming out. It might be slower going in, but as he comes out, he's getting more traction and being able to really get on it.
Well, 2 weeks ago at Monaco in the wet, we learned that the Ferrari is a very difficult car to judge by Eddie Irvine's problems. But now Michael Schumacher, who crashed out on the opening lap of that race, is showing us another of his many skills. And now the battle cools for a moment. While we have the opportunity, we'll take a quick time out and return for more live action from the Grand Prix of Spain, where it continues to rain heavily. Sorry, Dr. Doolittle. Varsha, Derek Bell, glad to have you with us. Yes, I know Rex Harrison's character in My Fair Lady was not Dr. Doolittle, but for the life of me, I can't remember what his character's name was. It is raining heavily in Spain, not only on the plains, but on the racetrack, where Michael Schumacher in the bright red Ferrari is trying to get by Jacques Villeneuve for the lead in this race. He's already taken care of Jean Alesi and opened up a gap over the Frenchman in the Benetton. Right now, Villeneuve is proving to be a bit of a difficult task to get around.
Yeah, just look at that spray there. The rain isn't easing up at all, and it must be very difficult for Michael to do anything. You can see him taking that wider line as he comes around the turn back there, so he can get a bit of better visibility. One mustn't forget, of course, that it puts a lot less stress on the engine, a lot less stress on the brakes, and certainly on the gearbox. And some of these areas we know are fragile on the Ferrari, so the damp conditions will certainly favour it in that respect. But he's sussing the situation out. I mean, he is just purely a passenger behind Villeneuve at the moment, but he's looking down the inside to find a line through there. But you can see he did benefit from it.
Very quick in those S's. Oh, and by the way, you can stop yelling at your television. It was Professor Henry Higgins. Thank you very much. And so ends the longest analogy in motorsports. Still raining heavily, and it is not predicted to dry out here in Spain. So these drivers can look forward to 54 more laps of this, scheduled for 65 laps. Keep in mind, there is a 2-hour time limit on Formula One Grand Prix races. So regardless of where we are at the 2-hour mark, the race will end, as it did in Monaco 2 weeks ago, when we got in just 75 of a scheduled 78 laps. A little bit of a skate there for the German.
He's right on the outside of that corner. He really favors that wide line. Oh, here's an interesting shot here. Can't really see much at all from this high, but you see how Schumacher really comes up on Villeneuve. And Hill's out this time.
Well, it's easy to say that was an accident waiting to happen. Damon Hill having all kinds of traction problems throughout the weekend. Now, before we blame Damon, let's keep in mind the setup on this car. They may have taken a shot at a mixed setup. Oh, and up front, Schumacher takes the lead from Villeneuve, and our hosts from Spanish television weren't quite on the pass. Perhaps we'll see a replay.
It certainly looks a very clean one at the end of it. It looks a beautiful, clean run. Now we're just going to see how Jacques likes to have spray in his eyes for a few laps. But he's looking to find some visibility as well. It really is the most unpleasant place to be, behind somebody in the pouring rain in a single-seater. Maybe he'll pick up something from watching Schumacher's lines through these corners and pick up a bit more traction. See a little bit of opposite lock there as he slid out. Well, obviously, Damon's accident was right coming onto the pit straight.
Yeah, it was right at the pit wall. And here's a look coming off that fast downhill right-hander where the late Ayrton Senna spun a few years ago in dry conditions. As you see, once you spin...
He had quite a whack, didn't he? Quite an impact. Now, I hope they moved that car. I noticed there was... I don't know if it was that car there. You see one of the Tyrrells?
This is the pass for the lead. Schumacher coming down the inside, showing his front wheels to Villeneuve, who has to go very, very wide. They have to watch the run out there, though, because the passing car may slide wide.
He did slide wide. He really did slide wide. He pushed Villeneuve out, and all credit to Jacques, because he actually gave him room.
In slow motion from Villeneuve's onboard camera. Schumacher is your leader. In the Williams garage, Damon Hill begins his debrief.
Not much to say, really. Car was wonderful, I was lousy. I suppose if you've gone off 3 times in the first 12 laps of the race, there's not much to say. It shows you can't get desperate. In these conditions, you've got to drive as smoothly as you possibly can.
Look at the rate at which Michael Schumacher is leaving Jacques Villeneuve in these conditions. Villeneuve nowhere in sight. Now that Michael Schumacher has asserted his authority, here's a program note. Coming up tonight on ESPN, our Sunday night baseball game of the week at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, live from Riverfront Stadium in Cincinnati, Ohio, the Atlanta Braves, the defending world champs behind Fred McGriff, 4th in the National League in hitting, and Barry Larkin leading the Reds. We've had a controversial season to date. It should be great action. Live at 8 p.m., our Sunday night baseball game of the week, the Braves visiting the Reds. In Spain, Michael Schumacher showing why he is in fact a 2-time world champion. Still looking for that all-important first victory. Has a couple of poles waking up the echoes in Maranello.
One mustn't be too presumptuous in talking about victories at this stage. I think it's a kiss of death on a driver, but they have only had 2 victories in the last 36 starts. So it would be absolutely outrageous for Ferrari to have a good result here. Or, I mean, a victory here. They've had good results before, but to have a victory would be great stuff. Look at Schumacher streaking away.
There's a footnote to Damon Hill's crash. In the wet warning warm-up, or words to that effect, Damon Hill was quickest by nearly a full second over this man, Michael Schumacher.
But of course, let's not forget that Michael wasn't happy with the car, and I'm sure he wasn't, because they've had no testings. Only had 1 day's testing since Monaco, and that certainly wasn't in the rain. So he's changed the car quite dramatically this morning between warm-up and the race, and obviously it's paid off. One would love to know what it is. He's really getting some beautiful opposite lock-on through some of these turns. His balance is superb. But I mean, we know how great he is in the wet. We've seen that. Look at that opposite lock as he comes out of there, snaking away.
Michael Schumacher remains the star. And while the cover is put on Damon Hill's Williams Renault, his race is run. He will score no points here today. Stay with us for more from Spain. Grand Prix of Spain from the Circuit de Catalunya, about 15 miles northeast of the city of Barcelona. You see the running order. Up front, Michael Schumacher, who passed Jacques Villeneuve for the race lead. He is informed of his position and where the men are behind him. And as you saw from those numbers, he's up 10 seconds already on Villeneuve.
Well, he's pulling away at 2 seconds a lap. I mean, it's an absolutely amazing piece of driving. It's reminiscent of the great Senna at Donington that time, and I think it was the European Grand Prix where you froze to death, I seem to recollect. But he is outstanding in the rain. We saw him last year, and I think to see a master at work is something we're very lucky to see.
Glance at his pit board, and he is away.
Oh, yes. You can certainly see his pit board extremely well. You just looked out there, saw it. One questions whether they can, but boy, they can see very vividly. Remember, that's... Oh, look at that bit of opposite lock as he comes out. He's certainly not hanging around. He's really going for it. He wants a nice buffer if he's going to come in. I presume they'll come in and refuel. So he's probably going to come in for a one refueling. Villeneuve, it looks like, has a lazy all over the back of him.
There you see the gap from second to third. And the fourth place car of Berger now beginning to show up in the picture. Behind him is Rubens Barrichello and Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Frentzen obviously suffering no ill effects from that massive crash on the same part of the racetrack that Damon Hill crashed on just moments ago. Let's take a look at the cars out of the race thus far. David Coulthard, who was involved in a crash with both Pedro Lamy and Giancarlo Fisichella, we are told, but we didn't see it. Olivier Panis is out, the winner in Monaco, and Ricardo Rosset, the young Brazilian, learning his way in Formula One. Having problems here in Spain, Ukio Katayama off as well, so the Tyrrell team continues to suffer problems as well. The Tyrrells have an interesting structural modification, giving them the benefit of the doubt. Their upper suspension components, both front and rear, are solid pieces, not the usual spindly carbon fiber structural members. It is a solid plate. And many of the teams up and down the pit lane have been grumbling about it, but they received permission to run the part here. But apparently has not done them a lot of good thus far. Now you ride with Jos Verstappen, who had 3 heavy crashes in Monaco 2 weeks ago. Now he loops the loop but doesn't get it off the racetrack. That'll keep the tires clean.
Beautiful bit of driving. He just sort of put it, it makes you wonder why he lost it in the first place. And then he sort of said, okay, I'll perfect this, and kept it to the quick 360 and carried on.
Verstappen has been moving around the paddock, looking forward to next year. His manager wants $5 million, we are told, for the young Dutchman. Tom Walkinshaw, who runs the team for which Verstappen drives right now, says he will underwrite the rest of Verstappen's season with the TWR Arrows team if, in fact, he can get a contract with him for next year, and he does not want to pay $5 large.
I don't think Tom's that generous. Tom hates paying drivers lots of money. I don't blame him either. I think it's getting a little bit out of hand, the amount of money we have here.
This is Pedro Diniz in the Ligier taking it off. We saw Damon Hill go off at this corner. So Diniz can keep the fire as he bulldozes his way across that gravel trap, which is supposed to be soft enough to bring a car to a quick and safe halt. Obviously, that one a bit more like a tennis court.
Yes, it's like a clay court, isn't it? With all that water in it. We just noticed just now that that Schumacher's pulling away at 3 to 4 seconds a lap from Jacques Villeneuve. Absolutely astonishing, the pace that they've got out of that Ferrari right now. And you can see that, in fact, Villeneuve's car had a little bit more power on the straightaway, because he always seemed to pull out a bit on the straight.
There's a spin for, I think that's Mika Salo. Yes, in the Tyrrell.
That was obviously before he went out.
You can see the front structural part on the left there. Solid piece, front to rear. The complaint is that it is a moving aerodynamic structure, that it has a property that provides downforce to the car. Of course, being a suspension member, it would move up and down with the wheel. The team says no, it is purely for structural purposes. So the argument continues. Jacques Villeneuve, red rain light flashing as he goes down the front straightaway, remains in second place, but a fading second place. Up front, Michael Schumacher showing mastery of this very wet racetrack. He leads the Grand Prix of Spain.
Brundle and Barrichello have gone off the road. They both had incidents at Monaco, both totally inflicted by themselves, nobody else involved really. Absolutely unnecessary, and if I was the boss, I'd be really upset.
Now here he is pulling off. We didn't see him exit the race. That may be a mechanical problem.
I take it all back. I'm sorry, it probably was the Peugeot engine. But nonetheless, it's very disappointing when you have these problems in racing. A team like his, they had such expectations at the beginning of the year, and here they are not finishing races. And that's what it's all about, mechanically or physically.
This is the year the Jordan team says we must win a race. Peugeot says they will finish out their contract with the team, which has at least one more year to run. In fact, Peugeot says they are going to build an all-new V10 engine for Formula One in 1997. The present engine, designated as the A10, is actually simply a reduced version of their old 3.5-liter V10. They'll have an all-new clean sheet of paper motor in 1997 as Brundle prepares to walk back to the pit lane. As Pedro Diniz, we saw him off the racetrack. He is about to come under fire from the race leader and world champion, Michael Schumacher.
if Schumacher were to keep this pace up at 3 to 4 seconds a lap, he's going to lap the whole field, which would be absolutely outrageous in these conditions. But it's a long way to go, and he does have a pit stop to make. He's always slipping down the inside. If we can see, he can see, we can't.
He's the 11th car running on the racetrack and last in the line. Mika Salo visited the pit lane. We don't know if he's retired yet or not. So of our 20 starters, we have 11, minimum of 11 running right now. Here's a look at the pass from high overhead. Michael Schumacher needed to get it done fairly early before Denise began his turn in case the Brazilian did not see him. More attrition. The second consecutive race in Formula One. Schumacher powers his way around, feathering that throttle. It bears repeating, 2 weeks ago, Eddie Irvine had all that he could do to keep the Ferrari pointed straight in the wet. Here is Michael Schumacher storming past the likes of Jacques Villeneuve and Damon Hill, who are in the Williams. Ron Dennis this weekend said this is the track at which the Williams cars will be their most formidable because they have picked up that perfect balance between understeer and oversteer that allows the drivers to do pretty much anything they want. Everyone else has struggled.
There's Jean Todt, the team manager of Ferrari. They're all looking fairly serious, and so they should be. They're only we're not even halfway yet, but their boy is doing a wonderful job out there. And it always just amazes me that you get a car that last year didn't feature that well, and here it is being driven by Schumacher, and he makes it look relatively easy. I'm sure there's a lot of right foot control going on there, and left foot with the brakes. Here he comes in the corner, dab of the brakes, and just feeding it on us. You can hear him, nice and smooth progression. In the rain, you don't want to have too low a gear. You want to be like in fourth gear rather than third gear, so you don't get too much reaction from the engine. You get a nice smooth drive out of the turns, and Schumacher no doubt is mastering this right now.
No matter how technologically advanced the cars become, you still need someone behind the wheel to make it all work. It's ice skating without the ice. Hit the road with the best in the world as they compete in the Ultimate Inline Challenge here on ESPN2, Thursday, June 2nd, 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 7:30 p.m. Pacific, only on the Deuce. Back in the pit lane, Martin Brundle continues his walk back to Eddie Jordan. Figure out what happened. Of course, if it was engine related, they already know in the pits. They will have checked their computer telemetry. They will know. Now, Mika Salo has been black flagged. Now, while we were going over the starting grid, Salo was pushed into the garage. Apparently, he climbed into his backup car and did so in violation of some sort of regulation. I can't imagine what it is. And he apparently is being black flagged for taking his spare car in violation of some rule. He's been black flagged, brought into the pit, so apparently his race is run as well. That one will bear some explaining. There's Johnny Herbert in the Sauber Ford.
Whoa! He loses it. Round it goes. Is he going to go in? No. Oh, he can't see. Keep that engine running, Johnny. He's up on the grass, so he might get a bit of traction to come back on again. He hasn't hit anything, but looks like he may well have stalled it. That's a pity. Johnny was running well in 8th place, but he's not running in 8th anymore.
Jacques Villeneuve continues in 2nd place. Let's take a look at the top qualifiers and where they are running at this point in the race. Still very early on. Damon Hill, our pole sitter, is out. Jacques Villeneuve qualified 2nd and runs there. Michael Schumacher has gone from 3rd to 1st. John Alesi has claimed 1 position to 3rd, and Gerhard Berger has dropped 1 back to 4th.
It looked like in the background there they were pushing one of the Saubers away. I don't know if you saw that. I saw the turquoisey blue of the bodywork as they pushed something away there in the background. And if we can see that again, I don't think it's desperately relevant, but it looked like it was certainly a car.
A check of the rules reveals that Mika Salo changed to his backup car within 5 minutes of the start of the race, and that was the violation that led to his black flag. Folks enjoying themselves in the Ferrari pits. Why not? Their man leads. Michael Schumacher, you mentioned earlier, Derek, that they took a break after Monaco. Schumacher says that is the first time since the beginning of the year that he has not been in a Ferrari every single day. So he definitely earns his $25 million, including endorsement options this year. Michael Schumacher reportedly will earn $80 million, making him certainly one of the highest paid athletes in all the world. About past Mika Hakkinen. We'll be back live to Spain. Barcelona, Spain. The Grand Prix of Spain continues. Round 7 of the World Championship for 1996. Rob Varsha and Derek Bell, glad to have you with us. Michael Schumacher has a 34-second lead over Jacques Villeneuve. He is far and away the class of this field. 9 cars remain of our 20 starters. There you see the gap now out to 37 seconds. We expect Michael Schumacher to pit at the end of this lap for tires and fuel. Derek, I feel I've been an apologist now for about 2 weeks. The best paid drivers in the world seem to be having a terrible time keeping their cars on the racetrack.
Yes, they do. It is outrageous, isn't it, that these guys seem to spin off and fall off. But you've never driven a race car at this level, Bob, and I suppose it's been a while since I have too. And you're on such a limit, you're under such pressure, there's so much pressure around you within the team. You get out there in these conditions and, you know, it's almost there, but for the grace of God go I. And but you do see a masterful drive by Schumacher, yet, however, he did go off at Monaco. One has to look at it again, and we saw the best drivers in IndyCar driving at Michigan the other day, and they managed to have a little moment at the start. So it happens to the best of us in every form of racing. But I do think it's bad that these fellows are paid so much money. They expect so much, the sponsors expect so much from them.
In comes race leader Michael Schumacher. What's the common thread between all 3 of the races you just mentioned? I was at all of them. Schumacher in. Now it appears he will take on the Goodyear Aquatro rain tires. Those are the less heavily treaded tires. They also have what are called the monsoon tires. Although given the rainfall we've seen here today, I'm not sure how hard it has to rain to make those monsoon tires work. At any rate,
all I'll say is he's not doing a bad job on wet tires. I hardly think he needs the monsoons. It'd be almost embarrassing if he put the monsoons on, and he just wants to play safe right now. He's got a comfy lead. He just wants to do what he was doing before. He can pull away. So why do anything fancy and try something that none of them have even tested yet?
There's Jacques Villeneuve with Jean Alesi still holding station in 3rd place behind him. Alesi's been having a very public feud this weekend with a female Italian journalist. He got into it at a press conference earlier this weekend.
Whoa, Villeneuve gets it all sideways through there, but handles it beautifully. Fortunately, the track is nice and smooth, although it has these waves in it. So when the car does slide, it's not like it's got any bumps, which actually kicks the car out when you slide in the wet. And he had a lovely bit of control there, kept in it, and didn't lose any time whatsoever.
His learning curve continues to develop. Keep in mind, in Brazil earlier this year, he spun off in the wet.
He was under a lot of pressure there, and really it was the fact that Alesi, I think I'm correct in saying, went down the inside of him for position. And of course, poor Jacques got on the damp, on the wetter part of the track on the outside, and once you're pushed out there, you're in the laps of the gods. So of course he slid out and off on the grass. I think Lazy right now would really rather like to get by. He's been stuck behind Villeneuve a bit too long, but he doesn't seem to make many inroads on him. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens at the pit stop, and maybe that's what Alesi is waiting for as well.
Exactly what I was going to say. Maybe Alesi will come in and let the Benetton team try to help him make the pass. Michael Schumacher's Ferrari faring better than the camera lens he just passed.
Look at the water spraying off those rear tires.
See that distinctive helmet Schumacher is wearing? It's a Bell helmet, the IndyCar style sculpted model, to help get air into that inlet over his head and provide greater ram air effect into the engine. They are producing some commemorative replicas of that helmet, signed personally by Michael Schumacher, with a lovely plexiglass case, and all it will set you back is a mere $3,000.
Oh, and he never even wore it.
For that, he ought to put it on and take it off again.
But it's strange that he actually is the only driver out there that appears to be wearing one of these helmets. Bell and Simpson have done a lot of development with these helmets, so we've seen at Indy over the years, and they certainly do seem to work. I've worn them on a couple of occasions at the very fast circuits in sports cars, in the open cockpit cars, of course. and they actually do work. They stop a lot of turbulence, and the reason we wore them was for the turbulence and the way our head bounces around in the cockpit. In this case, they're using it because of the airflow is being restricted or being buffeted around the inlet for the airbox, which of course is all important. You can see it there right above his head.
Now the gap 23 seconds due to Schumacher's pit stop. Absolutely diabolical conditions in Spain today. And how unusual, the last couple of days, dry, sunny, very warm. In fact, many of the drivers voiced concerns that it would be a hot day today because this racetrack is very hard on tires. Many of the teams saving up sets, using them very sparingly in practice and in qualifying on Saturday afternoon, thinking that it would be a warm, sunny day, and that would add to the temperature problem and the graining of the tires. Obviously, everyone completely out to lunch on the weather forecast.
No troubles with the graining of the tires today, that's for certain.
Schumacher way up on the edge of the pavement.
Jacques going through a very steep learning curve in these wet conditions. Of course, he must have driven many, many times, what with his Formula 3 and various other championships he's raced in. I mean, he raced all over Europe and then, of course, in Japan. So he knows what it's like to race in the rain, but he has got Lazy right behind him as he goes through these sweeps and turns here. And I think Lazy was waiting for the pit stop, but he's still keeping that pressure on Villeneuve all the time.
Villeneuve has to be mindful of the fact that he is vulnerable. If Schumacher wins the race, he picks up 10 points. Right now, he trails Villeneuve by 6 coming into the weekend. So Villeneuve has to keep scoring points if he hopes to stay in second place in the Drivers' Championship. And of course, everybody who scores will close up on leader Damon Hill, who has 43 points over the week, coming into the weekend, 21 up on second place Villeneuve. There's a comparison of lap times. We'll step away and be back in just a moment. Canadian gets the quicker start. Problems for Michael Schumacher getting away behind Damon Hill. Gerhard Berger took him, but that did not last long. Into the lead swept Villeneuve, with Jean Alesi just behind him, Damon Hill third. Hill proceeded to be on and off the racetrack twice before clouding the wall on the start-finish straightaway and dropping out. Meanwhile, Michael Schumacher was working his way through to second place, and then with this pass on Jacques Villeneuve, took over the race lead, and he simply checked out, motored off into the distance, has made a pit stop, and still retains a 25-second lead over the second-placed Canadian. Through the mist and spray, tells you just about everything about the conditions here in Spain. Villeneuve and Alesi just behind him. Here are the cars out of the race and the reasons why. Coulthard, Lamy, and Fisichella all went off in the same instance. Olivier Panis, the winner at Monaco, also crashed, as did Ricardo Rosset in the TWR Arrows car. Ukio Katayama suffered an engine meltdown. Martin Brundle, the same problems for the Peugeot. Johnny Herbert spun and hit the wall. Eddie Irvine spun and stalled, apparently. We saw him go off. And Mika Salo was parked by the officials for taking to his backup car within 5 minutes of the start of this race, which is a violation of the rules. Damon Hill, as I mentioned, spun in the final corner and tagged the wall as well.
I just noticed that Schumacher just overtook Häkkinen for the second time in the race, which must be very galling for Häkkinen. He's had a miserable weekend. The McLarens have not been there at all this weekend. I can't understand why it is, but they said it was something to do with the surface of the circuit was affecting the handling of the car. And of course, it's been the same for everybody, but we have known that the McLarens have had this handling problem early this year, but they did say they'd fixed it with this adjustment to the, or this fixing of their front wing and made it much stronger. But nevertheless, they certainly are not having a good weekend here. And what with Coulthard out and Häkkinen being lapped is not a very good outlook for McLarens at this point, especially having spent $1 million or £1 million on their new motorhome.
It's a Ferrari. Let's make a comparison of Michael Schumacher and Damon Hill, who've been locked together as rivals virtually throughout their Formula One careers. Schumacher with more starts than Hill, slightly more victories. Actually, Damon Hill has been arguably the more effective man when it comes to victories per start. Total points, Schumacher leads his rival. Schumacher, of course, has 2 world championships to none for Hill. As you can see, no let up in the rain. Huge plume of liquid behind Michael Schumacher's car. They expect to have a very different aerodynamic treatment to this Ferrari by the next race in Montreal, Canada in mid-June, including a markedly higher raised nose in front. They're also planning some tweaks to the engine as the relentless development of Formula One technology continues.
And of course they are catching up the Williams, no doubt, in all the development of both areas. So Williams are there to be shot down at the moment, and they're being shot down today in the rain, but I don't think it's the car so much as the masterful driving of this fella.
Well, Williams will have a new weapon shortly too. Renault plans to introduce an engine modification, another uprating of what has been the most successful engine in Formula One over the last couple of seasons. In fact, they have won 21 of the last 23 races, the exception being Alesi's victory in Canada last year for Ferrari, and Olivier Panis, of course, and the Ligier in Monaco 2 weeks ago. But Renault will have a new engine. We expect it to debut at the Grand Prix of France in July, because, of course, Renault is a French company, and they'll want to make a big splash there. Speaking of splashes, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Frentzen leads Verstappen in the red car by the gap you saw there.
It's good to see Frentzen having a good run when you consider what an awful incident he had earlier this morning. It certainly must deter a driver, put him back a bit, but particularly when you go out in the rain. The rain is a horrible thing to go out. You never know quite what's going to happen. You don't know whether you're going to lock a brake up, whether the car's going to go out of control, and we saw that happening on many occasions, and I think one has to bear with the drivers somewhat when we consider the conditions really are dismal out there. Interesting shot right there. You'll see how Alesi was right in the footsteps, or as you like, the wheel marks, the tire treads of Villeneuve. So it means that he can, obviously he's getting less water on his tires because he's running in that drier area behind Villeneuve, but of course as soon as he pulls out to go by him, he's back in the deep water and can do nothing about it. So it's much easier to follow somebody in the rain. You might not be able to see, but you can certainly feel your way a lot better.
You see the time remaining. Keep in mind there is a 2-hour time limit, and we are going to be very close. It remains to be seen if we're going to complete 65 laps in these conditions. Schumacher leads Villeneuve, Alesi, Berger, Barrichello, and Frentzen. We are hearing there's a possibility the second and third place cars will not pit. Back at the Grand Prix of Spain, you ride with Jos Verstappen in the TWR Arrows car, fighting, scrabbling for grip in a just absolutely diabolical conditions as the rain continues to fall. Speaking of water, we've got action on the water. The Super Bowl of unlimited hydroplane racing is coming up later today, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. The Chrysler Jeep APBA Gold Cup. All of the top unlimited hydroplanes. If you've never seen a hydroplane in action, check it out on the Detroit River. The biggest event in the sport. The Chrysler Jeep APBA Gold Cup here on The Deuce. Up on full plane, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who had that huge crash this morning in the wet warm-up, is out there in his Sauber Ford. There you see the various rain tires. On the right are the monsoon tires. Notice the difference in tread. Very deeply treaded. On the left, the standard wets. It appears that the Benetton team is ready for one of their men, presumably Jean Alesi. Although we understand that Alesi and Villeneuve are both thinking about trying to avoid the pit stop in order to come to terms with this man, Michael Schumacher. At this point has them right where they want him. He is still moving out at a rate of 3 to 4 seconds per lap on those that follow.
That is absolutely amazing. Anybody can race and pull away in those at that pace. I mean, it's an amazing differential. I don't think I've seen anybody actually pull away at that pace for many, many years. Even the great Ayrton couldn't. I didn't remember him doing it quite as dramatically as that.
An astonishing drive from Michael Schumacher.
Look at Heron come down that box. It's just wonderful just now listening to him as he feeds it on as he goes out. I mean, he's certainly not backing off. He's not taking it easy at all.
Handling 750 plus horsepower in the rain. And here comes Jean Alesi's Benetton. A little extra bravery on the part of the mechanics, and particularly that man with the jack at the front of the car in these conditions. New wets all around. Load of fuel, and away he goes. Those were the normal Aquatro Goodyear rain tires, so no one has gone to the heavy monsoon tires. I'll tell you what, I'm not sure I want to be at the race where it's raining heavily enough to use those monsoons.
That'll be for Fuji or somewhere else, Suzuka, somewhere in Japan when they get this torrential downpour. They got a lot of rain here, but they have some pretty bad surfaces at these Japanese circuits, and I think that's probably what they got in mind, because it really does bucket down out there.
Talking about circuits, everyone, rumors flying, everyone talking about next year's schedule, which may include a U.S. Grand Prix. A lot of people talking about either Las Vegas or the Disney World complex in Orlando, Florida. If you believe the rumors, we can expect an announcement late this season that the 25th anniversary of the building of the Disney World complex in Orlando will feature the construction of a road course for Formula One cars. That would be great news for Formula One fans in the United States. Bernie Ecclestone, when asked about the issue this weekend, said, "I'm talking to Mickey Mouse next week, and we'll see what happens." Though then again, we understand the asking price for a 5-year contract for a Formula One race is $80 million, which provides a firm basis for negotiation, I guess you might say. Or also, excuse me.
Sorry, he won't be dealing with Mickey Mouse when it comes to that, I can assure you.
Zalesi on his new wets. Oh. Keep it on the hard stuff.
Ooh, only just.
Can't do it.
He's obviously trying to make up some time. Now he's got a clear track ahead of him, but he's lost all momentum. Obviously trying to get himself some really good quick laps in, so that when Jacques Villeneuve pits, presuming he does, that he'll have that advantage and might be in front of him to save him having to work his way by him, but he's been trying for the last 26 laps or so.
The Benetton crew brings out a new set of wets. Presumably Gerhard Berger will be the next one in. Berger having taken over 3rd place, as you see. Bit of a surprise that Alesi's not in the top 6. That wasn't a long pit stop. And the way this field is stringing out, there you see Alesi presently in 7th place. Hard to believe Verstappen got by him.
Of course, there must be somebody out there that isn't going to pit during this race, and it would have been a very good strategy to go out on a wet tire and a full tank of fuel and get through to the finish. But we know the Ferrari is very thirsty. However, of course, it is a shortened race if it's 2 hours, so presumably it would have enough fuel for the distance. But in this case, they're not worried. He pulled in and he's gone out in front, still 26 seconds ahead at that point. We know not just how far he is ahead at this time, but I'm sure he's pulling away quite substantially. It does look remarkably stable coming down in the rain under braking.
Which says as much for Schumacher as it does for the car.
That's right. They have been complaining of this oversteer problems they've been having in the rain. I thought he had an understeer problem at Monaco myself. But he's obviously getting his oversteer and a bit of whiplash there as he comes out of that turn. But he's screaming down the hill there, braking very, very hard as he turns into the left-hander.
Now here comes Gerhard Berger in. Benetton Renault. There are rumors about this team as well, that perhaps Benetton, when its contract is up with the, that Renault, when their contract is up with the Benetton team, may decide to take their leave and support only Williams.
I hope they got that left rear wheel on properly. That fellow was having an awful trouble there with his air gun trying to fix it.
Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Sauber Ford pits. Sauber looking for an engine for next year. They've been told by Ford apparently that they can use older versions of the Ford Cosworth V10. The most advanced version of that engine will go to Jackie Stewart's new team next year. Ford is also saying that they are going to end their customer V8 program in future years, although the Cosworth engine firm that designs and builds these cars for Ford, the engines that is, will continue the V8 program with an engine badged exclusively as a Cosworth. 30 laps remaining in the race, barely into the second half, and we have barely an hour remaining, so it's going to be close. This engine capable of revving to 16,200 RPM. Think about that for a moment. About 270 crankshaft revolutions per second. 810 liters of air cycled through the engine per second. 970,000 piston strokes per hour. Astonishing technology. Pit stops continue to juggle the running order. We'll review them for you after a quick break. Jacques Villeneuve holding on for points in second place. We'll be back. Jacques Villeneuve. Racing has been an important part of Spanish history, particularly in this part of the country, as Villeneuve heads for the pits. To the south, at the town of Sijes, lie the remains of a 1.2-mile concrete oval track that once held a version of the Spanish Grand Prix in the pre-Formula One days. More on that in a moment as Villeneuve comes to a stop in the Williams pit. Safety clip goes on. Everything looks good. Massive revs from the Renault V10, and he's back on his way. A 10-second pit stop. See where he jumps back into the running order. There's Rubens Barrichello in the Jordan, tippy-toeing around with his Peugeot V10. He's the only one among the cars remaining in this race that has yet to pit. Barrichello up into second. Could he be making a bid for points by not pitting during the course of the race? We shall see. Getting back to that oval track, it is just ruins now, but back in the 1920s, it hosted what was then called a Grand Prix race, won by Alberto Divo, a British-built Sunbeam, over Count Louis Zabrowski, racing an American-built Miller. Look at the conditions. Granted, the television camera condenses the mist just a little bit, but not all that much. This racetrack built beginning in 1989. The builders moved 1 million cubic meters of earth to carve up a hillside and create this circuit.
The old circuit actually was wonderful. The Montjuic Park was a fabulous, fabulous circuit. The atmosphere up in the park was wonderful, but of course they couldn't get many people to watch it because they had to virtually stand on the sidewalks to watch the cars go around. But the undulations there were absolutely superb.
Jackie Stewart still calls it the most beautiful circuit in the world.
Yeah, believe it or not, I had my best Formula 2 single-seater victory of my life there. Was at Barcelona Montjuic in 1970. It's a lovely, lovely circuit.
It was 5 years later, in 1975, Emerson Fittipaldi retired from the race after one lap in protest, saying the cars were too fast, the circuit wasn't safe enough. The race went forward, and Rolf Stommelen crashed into the crowd, killing 4 spectators. That was that. Until the building of this circuit, about 15 miles to the northeast.
Was that the time when all the wings, their very high wings, all fell off the cars and it was all spun out? I know Graham Hill had a big crash there when his wing on the Lotus collapsed.
That would have been some years earlier. In fact, Stommelen was driving one of Graham Hill's cars in that fatal 1975 race, a Hill Ford.
The Embassy Ford, wasn't it? I recollect. Yes, it was a few years earlier. It was probably 70 or 71 when the accident happened.
Still pulling that wake. Looks like Schumacher could pull a water skier or two in these conditions. Now, Michael Schumacher, as you see his last lap, a lot slower than his best lap, but still on a par with what the others are doing. We're getting a report from the pit lane that all may not be completely well with Michael Schumacher's engine.
Sounded pretty good then, I thought.
Oh, Frentzen coming right out to the edge of the road there. I thought he was about to go.
They're all coming right out to the end. Yeah, they're all right out to the edge as they come out through there.
Even in the rain and the visibility that we have here, it's difficult to miss the bright red Ferraris.
Isn't it wonderful the way they've kept those colours all these years, even with the inception of sponsors and everything? We still have a beautiful, brilliant Ferrari red cars out on the grid, and they still are the most recognisable cars that they've ever been. I don't know what Formula One would be like if we didn't have Ferraris in it. It wouldn't be Formula One anymore, I guess.
Absolutely. Right now you're looking at perhaps more sponsorship than the Ferraris have ever carried. Of course, Enzo Ferrari wanted the focus to be on the cars. Now Asprey, the high-end London jewelers, are on there. Marlboro, of course, has been there for years. In fact, they have done a sponsorship or technology transfer deal with General Electric. We expected to see that decal in the car, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yes, I was talking to people from Asprey's the other day, and we were discussing who they should have gone to with their sponsorship, and in fact, they have to go to Ferrari. I mean, it is the most recognizable name something like, was it Pepsi-Cola and Coke or something, are the two names that are better recognized around the world, and then Ferrari. So it's the way to go for an upmarket sponsorship carriage, it's for certain.
Right now you're watching the Grand Prix of Spain. Lots of other racing going on this weekend as well, and you'll get all of it if you tune in later on at 11 a.m. Eastern Time for RPM Today. Reese Davis sitting in for Kenny Mayne. Then tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, the RPM Tonight, all of the highlights of the day in motorsports. So check them out, RPM Today and RPM Tonight here on The Deuce.
Schumacher's about to come up and lap Heinz-Harald Frentzen at this time, which will be a little bit galling for Frentzen, who is reputed to be quicker than Schumacher, or everybody says he's got the raw talent of Schumacher. They race together in the Mercedes sports car team, so they're very, very good friends, in fact.
Pedro Diniz of Brazil brings in the Ligier. Keeping the revs up while the wets go on. He is running last in the field. Of course, that's ninth. That's just 3 places out of the points. And that is the second stop for Diniz. Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Frentzen caused a bit of a furor recently. Celebrated a birthday, I believe it was in Monaco. And his old Mercedes team bosses, Norbert Haug and their PR representative, came over with a birthday cake and had their pictures taken with their man, Peter Sauber, for whom Frentzen now drives, was terribly upset that there were no Sauber people in the picture. Only the Mercedes folk. Jean Alesi in the Benetton, running in 3rd place. 40 laps now complete. 25 remain. There you see the running order. Barrichello holding station in 2nd, but he has not pitted. Alesi is 3rd. Villeneuve in 4th place, despite a 10-second pit stop. Gerhard Berger 5th. Heinz-Harald Frentzen 6th. There are the remaining drivers in the race. 10, 6, 4, 3, 2, and 1, the number of points that the top 6 finishers will pick up. No one will catch Damon Hill today, but we could see a shake-up behind. Watch Alesi at work. One of the other stories we heard this weekend is that John Alesi's girlfriend, Japanese actress Kumiko Goto, has been asked not to station herself in the Benetton pit during the race. They say she distracts John Alesi before an event. I'd say she is a very distracting personality, but I thought that was a little harsh. Downhill through the fast right-hander, past the pit entrance, and onto the start-finish straightaway comes John Alesi to complete his 41st lap. The Circuit de Catalunya near Barcelona, Spain. Rubens Barrichello continues to circulate without a pit stop. 41-42 make that laps into the 65-lap race. He holds down 2nd place. There's the gap from 6th to 2nd. Meanwhile, Michael Schumacher, the race leader, has the Ferrari in the pits again.
He does have a 1-minute 7-second lead over 2nd place man, so he has got time for it, but it makes you wonder why he's stopping, unless he's going to put monsoons on.
His previous stop wasn't that long ago. No, those are still the Aquatro tires.
You see, he might have found there was an imbalance. He might have had a tire to balance, something like that, so therefore he came in. He didn't want to balance to break the suspension. There's probably a very good reason he came in like there was a problem with the tire.
There better be a very good reason. Schumacher poised to give Ferrari its first victory since Jean Alesi in Canada a year ago. Right now, let's take a look at our Haviland race recap. The leader is Schumacher, who took over the lead from Jacques Villeneuve on lap 12. That was the one lead change we've seen in this race thus far. But we have had plenty of other activity, mainly cars out of the race. Damon Hill hit the pit wall. David Coulthard was involved in a crash with a couple of other cars. Olivier Panis, the winner in Monaco 2 weeks ago, is also out. Ricardo Rosset. Fisichella was involved in the accident that took out Coulthard and his teammate Pedro Lamy. Katayama suffered an engine explosion. Johnny Herbert crashed. Eddie Irvine spun and stalled, and Mika Salo was black flagged from the race for taking to his backup car within 5 minutes of the start. Now Rubens Barrichello brings in the Jordan for his first stop. The only car in the race that had not stopped to this point.
Nice quick slick stop. There's some lovely stops today, and Nobody's had any bad ones. And it's great to see Ferrari doing good pit stops and being really sharp and on the ball. But boy, they've got to be.
Michael Schumacher would accept nothing less.
Exactly.
La Caixa, which you saw on that board there, is actually a bank here in Spain as Jacques Villeneuve goes around. Rubens Barrichello still coming up to speed.
That is for a position.
Oh, is it? I beg your pardon. So Barrichello drops back to 4th place. I'm watching my monitors. I was thinking about Damon Hill. We were about to give you a look at Damon Hill's crash that knocked the points leader out of the race, as Rubens Barrichello obviously not able to keep pace with Villeneuve. And here it is, down through the final right-hander. A little too much power. Back end comes around. And of course, when the track is this slick, you're going to go a long way. And if you hit something, you're going to do it with your momentum basically undiminished. And with that, Damon's race was run. He climbed the pit wall and stands under the awning, watching the telemetry, watching his teammate Jacques Villeneuve make his way around. Now here's Mika Hakkinen in the McLaren pits. This is his second stop. Burst of revs and on his way.
They all seem extremely confident not using monsoon tyres. So Goodyear are obviously absolutely adamant that these aren't the conditions for monsoon tyres. So it obviously is when the circuit is a deluge and there is water running in streams across it. And this track, the water doesn't seem to lie at all badly. It looks a very good circuit for rain.
Estimated spectator count this weekend, 53,000, which is pretty remarkable given the weather and the fact that for a premium ticket for this race, you should expect to shell out about $192 US.
Not a little bit of nothing, but in 1951, the second Grand Prix in Barcelona, there were 300,000 people watching the Grand Prix.
They probably charged them nothing at all back in those days.
That's right.
Just come on out and watch Fangio and Ascari go at it. Fangio actually won that race in one of his world championship years.
Absolutely. You really know your stuff, Bob.
Well, I'm sincere, if nothing else. See, Hakkinen's pit stop drops him to 8th, but he was going very slowly anyway. Probably thankful Denise is in the race so he can beat someone this weekend.
I think speed's relevant. To him, he's having the race of his year, probably. And here we are being scathing about it. The car isn't right, there's nothing you can do with it. You can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, as they say.
Just heard a little burst of revs from the Ferrari, a little bit of wheel spin. Something Michael Schumacher and everyone else in this field has gotten used to this day. The car does sound just a little bit off song, as though maybe an exhaust header has been punctured or something like that.
Of course, there is always the possibility that a little bit of moisture could have got in somewhere. There's certainly a lot of water spraying around that engine compartment, around the car.
There are the all-time constructor victories. Ferrari with 1 over McLaren. As McLaren came on with a rush in recent years, including 1988 when they won 15 of the 16 races, something we may never see again in Formula One. But Jean Alesi's victory in Canada last year gave Ferrari the all-time lead. No doubt pleased Enzo Ferrari, wherever he may be. You can definitely hear that flatulence, that off-tone sound to the Ferrari V10.
Probably right now Schumacher isn't enjoying it, but just watching him sliding through these corners on opposite lock makes you think he's having the most wonderful fun. There's something sensational driving a car through a racetrack and getting a little bit of opposite lock, feeding the power on and having a fine balance with the car in wet conditions.
Slipping sideways, now plunging downhill past the past the pit in and onto the start-finish straightaway. Michael Schumacher completes yet another lap in our race against the 2-hour time limit. 20 laps remaining. We'll be back. Moment to Spain. Back live in Spain, Rubens Barrichello back into the pits. During that pit stop, they were trying to inject something into the side of the car, and I think he may be having pneumatic problems. Keep in mind that the pneumatic system drives the valve train on the Peugeot V10, and they were injecting air, I believe it is, into the car, and it appears his race is over. Tough break for young Rubens Barrichello.
Yes, he was having a very good drive there, and I guess it was about 4th place. He was doing a super job. most disappointed for him. We saw him shine before in the rain. He must be very disappointed. That Eddie Jordan as well. And that is what I think is upsetting. All this budget, people pouring all this money in, and they get these problems with the cars. They're so high-tech these days, of course, that anything can go wrong. But people aren't paid for things to go wrong at the rate that people are paid in this business.
So both Jordans are out of the race. Jacques Villeneuve continues. He will move up a spot as a result of that. Gary Anderson on the left, the designer and chief engineer for the Jordan team. Man with IndyCar experience with Penske. Now right-hand man to Eddie Jordan. 18 laps remaining. Jacques Villeneuve. Villeneuve up to third unofficially. You see the time remaining in the race. It's going to be close. We may miss a couple of laps on the end here. You see an interesting statistic. Jacques Villeneuve running in the Grand Prix of Spain, which provided the last victory for his father Gilles. Grand Prix of Spain in 1981. Now that race took place in Jerez, Spain, to the south along the Atlantic coast, and it was a remarkable affair in which Villeneuve took the lead in his Ferrari and held 5 different cars behind him from 5 different teams. Held them behind him for the length of the race. He obviously had the inferior car, but he kept everyone behind. Took what was hailed then as a typically Villeneuve-style victory. A masterful job of defensive driving. John Alesi down across the start-finish line. Looking for valuable points for Benetton. Both Benettons continue to circulate. One of the Williams cars is out of the race, so Benetton can make up some ground in the Constructors' Championship in this race. There you see the running order. Alesi in second. Gerhard Berger has dropped well back, so he is not in the points at this juncture. Mika Hakkinen up into 6th. Berger running 9th, so the Austrian either pitted again and we did not see it. Berger will move up to 8th now that Barrichello is out, but still 2 places out of the points. I wonder what's going on with the Austrians' car.
Yeah, we haven't seen much in this race at all, apart from the start. Been focusing on Alesi, who always drives superbly in the rain. We saw him drive very, very well in Brazil. And of course, we saw his super drive at Monaco a couple of weeks ago, which was terminated so sadly. It's been wonderful to see him have a win. All this controversy about the Benetton team, but Alesi has been there on many occasions. All right, there's been certain situations where he's caused dramas, but when he actually gets things together, as he does, as the race folds out and he starts to get himself settled down. Once he settles down, he does do a beautiful job of driving, and there's very few people that can match him. We've seen that, as I say, in Brazil when he was chasing Damon very, very hard. We saw it at Monaco when he was also doing the same and then finally leading the race, and he's doing a superb job here because Jacques Villeneuve is not quite in his sights behind him, so there's quite a way between them at this time.
See the long history of Jean Alesi and Gerhard Berger together. Very different personalities, the Austrian and the Frenchman. 54 races, Ferrari and Benetton. Record for teammates. I wasn't aware of that. 59 races. They say they know each other very well, and even though they are arch rivals, as teammates often are, they prefer to have a man, each prefers to have a man alongside that he knows well. There's Jos Verstappen as his race comes to a sloppy conclusion.
He will not be happy with that one, that is for certain. That's really very, very sad because he was doing very well. They needed a good result with that car this weekend, but it was not to be. So we're down to 7 now.
Decals on Verstappen's car is Bell South, which is my regional phone company in the southeastern United States. I'm going to have a word with Tony Dow about why that decal's on the car. As you see Verstappen, another case of oversteering. The rear end comes around as he gets on the throttle. He couldn't correct quickly enough. Look how far he slides on that wet grass. And so the Dutchman walks in. Note that pad attached to the back of his helmet. Let's take a look at the cars out of the race. More men jumping into this queue all the time. We've already talked about Coulthard, Lamy, Panis, Rosset, and Fisichella. Went out very early. Katayama, Brundle, Herbert, Irvine, and Salo didn't last very long. Salo being black flagged. Now Barrichello, which is now officially a clutch problem. And Jos Verstappen, who spun off. 13 cars out of the race.
It's all very well, this driving on the limit, but you've got to keep it on that road, and that's what you're paid for, is to keep it on the limit. There's a fine point between crashing and staying on the road, and you've got to be on that fine edge, and that's what makes, I think, drivers great, is the ones that can stay right on that fine knife edge and not make those mistakes. And we're seeing a man who's masterful at it right now doing just that, and Alesi doing just the same job behind him, and of course Jack Villeneuve. And that's what these fellas are paid for, not paid to go off the road.
Here's another look at Verstappen's off.
He's actually one of the few that lost it today and didn't manage to keep the engine going.
There you see the gap. Over 1:05 between first place Michael Schumacher and second place Jean Alesi. Things looking pretty cool in the Ferrari timing the scoring area.
That gap is staying pretty constant between Alesi and Villeneuve. I'd hope that Jacques might do something a little bit more about it, but of course we didn't know just what potential Villeneuve had in, or should I say Alesi had in the first part, because he was stuck behind Villeneuve the whole time. Now he can actually call the tune in much the same way, so they're on pretty we've got parity as far as their performances are concerned.
At this point is a battle of attrition. Field evenly spaced, very few cars, barely a half dozen cars remain in this race. That means Pedro Diniz, if he can finish, will pick up a point in Grand Prix competition for the first time. Overall, the finishing record over the last two races has been fairly abysmal. Another twitch from the Ferrari as race leader Schumacher makes his way around. 2 weeks ago in Monaco, we had 4 finishers running at the finish. That tied a record for the fewest number of finishers in a Formula One race. There's Damon Hill talking with former motorcycle world champion Barry Sheene in the dark jacket. This, of course, is motorcycle country. The Spaniards absolutely over the moon about motorcycle racing. Recently, the Grand Prix of Spain for motorcycles brought over 150,000 people to the Jerez circuit. Watch their heroes in action. Alex Crevier, a native son of Spain, led the race until the final corner when the spectators took to the racetrack. Crevier was thrown off of his motorcycle as world champ Mick Doohan charged alongside. Not far away from this racetrack, King Kenny Roberts, American 3-time world champion, owns a ranch which includes a dirt track, which he feels are important skills to Grand Prix pavement riders. Here at the race this weekend, another American world champion, Wayne Rainey. His Yamaha rider, Loris Capirossi, is here. And, of course, Barry Sheene, as you just saw, speaking with Damon Hill.
And let's not forget the fact that Damon Hill used to ride bikes. So I'm sure he has great respect for Barry. Damon, when I first met Damon, was riding his motorbikes at Brands Hatch, remember it vividly, trying to make his name there to get on up into motorcar racing. He's not done a bad job.
Absolutely. No let up in the rain. The track remains like a hockey rink. And in the Ferrari pits, everyone just waiting. It's become fairly processional here in Spain. Nevertheless, Michael Schumacher will take it. Almost a year since Ferrari last won a race. If he can win it, there's Gerhard Berger, who apparently is now out of the race. Flavio Briatore speaking with him. Ross Brawn with the Mild 7 cap on, the car designer. If Michael Schumacher can hold on, it will be his personal 20th career win, 106th for the most famous name in any form of racing. Ferrari out front and pulling away in the rain in Spain. Stay with us. We are back in Spain. And there's Rubens Barrichello walking away from a race car. Now this is odd. A moment ago he climbed out of it in the pits. Could it be they put him back in the car, sent him out? And then it turns out that Rubens was right all along. There's something wrong with the car.
Nearly cost him $10,000 too, because he walked away without putting his steering wheel back on.
After a 10-minute pit stop, Barrichello went back out, but as you see, whatever it was not fixed. He crawled to a stop, Now, they said clutch problems originally.
Well, maybe they pumped some pressure in there and thought it was going to work for a while. Oh, he moved actually off the road quite quickly, but he's getting it out of the way. Very good move.
But you're right, Derek. You have to leave the steering wheel on, and you have to leave the car in neutral. You better be prepared to open your wallet. Now, Jacques Villeneuve, either wiping his visor or removing a tear-off or waving at someone, he is closing up on Jean Alesi for second with 12 laps to go. I don't think we'll see all 12 of those laps as the clock continues to tick toward the 2-hour limit. Berger's official reason for leaving the race was a spin and crash. So Gerhard Berger's out of the running, leaving us 6 cars. There you see the gap coming down from second place Alesi to third place Villeneuve. And the skies appear to be lightening just that little bit, although it's obviously well too late for it to matter in the course of this race. Here's a program note for you here on ESPN2. The NCAA College World Series continue. From the losers bracket, Oklahoma State will play Clemson. 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 4:30 Pacific tonight here on the Deuce. Great college baseball action. Oklahoma State lost a shocker. Now they will play the Clemson Tigers out of the ACC. Now the gap widening just a little bit from Alesi to Villeneuve. Although that graphic really means nothing to the situation. That timing took place at the start-finish line. Villeneuve obviously a lot closer to Alesi than that gap. Still plenty of water on the racetrack.
I'm sure Alesi's not actually taking it easy, but he does know there aren't many laps to go, and Villeneuve has to catch him, and then he has to overtake him, and he has to eat some of his spray for a little while, which isn't really very much fun. You see Schumacher's backed off quite considerably, but he's a good minute and a half in the leads, or minute and 20 seconds in the lead, so he can afford to back off somewhat and save the whole situation. I wonder what's going through Schumacher's mind just now, because now he's got time to think. It's the first time in the race he's got time to think, possibly of things apart from keeping that car on the road, and that is a very dangerous situation for a driver. His mind starts to wander. He says, I've got another 8 laps to go, and then I could win for the first time for Ferrari. It must be an amazing thing for him after all this work he's put in with them. And then, oh, he lost it, so nearly lost it.
That'll give him something to think about.
He'll stop thinking about the prize money right now. That's for certain.
Jean Alesi, Flavio Briatore said something interesting about both Alesi and his teammate Gerhard Berger recently. He said he thinks they're actually quicker over 1 lap than Schumacher. But of course, 1 lap does not make a race.
Well, they haven't proved it in qualifying yet, and that's a good one-lapper.
Absolutely. One thing Michael Schumacher might be thinking about is his new private jet. Bought a Canadair Challenger. A used one, I understand.
Yes, for pure $18 million. Am I right in saying that? Something quite astronomical.
I don't know. I haven't bought one lately. Here's the longest list we can show you right now. The car is out of the race. Jos Verstappen, the most recent. Here from overhead as he comes onto the start-finish straightaway, Michael Schumacher at his car control best. Didn't look quite as dramatic from overhead.
I don't know that it was the same shot.
No, perhaps not.
You never know. But he certainly had a lot of lock on when he came out of that corner. He looked to be pointing right towards the wall.
0 laps means David Coulthard's McLaren Mercedes never made it all the way around. To collision with Pedro Lamy. Ricardo Rosset crashed out on his own.
One has to remember, though, that probably the beginning of the race, the visibility wasn't too good right at the back of that grid, and I don't expect they could see a thing. And the guy, well, we all know, anybody that's raced, you know that you're driving through the spray, and you just hope that nobody stops in front of you.
Briatore on the left, Frank Williams on the right. Williams is an incredible story. A man who mortgaged everything to become a Formula One car owner. One of his first drivers was his close personal friend, Piers Courage. He's the young heir to a British brewing fortune. Courage was killed in a racing crash, and Frank Williams writes that was one of his most soul-searching moments. Of course, late Ayrton Senna died in a Williams car. Frank Williams Williams has had to give careful thought to his involvement in Formula One over the years, but he has persevered, has made his team the strongest in the sport, and certainly the most successful over the last 4 seasons.
He's managed to keep his team together a lot, hasn't he? It's been astonishing how his designer has stayed with them the whole time. In fact, really runs the team now as much as Frank does.
Listen to the sound of that Mercedes V10. It doesn't sound good for Mika Hakkinen.
Doesn't sound at all good. Maybe that's been the story, his story of the race.
He does have a couple of points coming his way, however, if he can keep it running and keep it on the road. Hakkinen has suffered a case of lockjaw this weekend. He hasn't had much to say to the press. He's been very disappointed with the lack of grip in the chassis.
The car sounded very good there. Listen. There's nothing wrong with it there. I think it was just the sound on the microphone on the car. It seems like it might be under his armpit or something.
Schumacher right out in the middle of the road.
Whoa! The concentration you have to have in these conditions, because every foot of the way you can't relax on the straight at all, because the whole time the car might aquaplane, you're concentrating about the upshifting, because even with the upshifting you can get wheel spin, a bit of breakaway, and even on the downshifting, of course, it's even more vital, but somewhat easier with this sequential gearbox when you downshift.
Rubens Barrichello gets to take his helmet off yet another time. The sequential shift certainly plays into the story, but keep in mind the Ferrari gearboxes have been anything but bulletproof. Eddie Irvine has had virtually no testing in the car simply because their high-tech titanium gearboxes keep breaking. They now have a steel unit on the car, which allowed Irvine to get a little testing earlier this week.
Schumacher's still not giving very much away. He's still right on it. I think maybe that moment he had just now made him think, I better get back in the show here and just drive it very hard. It's the only way to really keep your concentration going.
Schumacher remains out front. We haven't seen the pictures from that onboard camera. You see the camera sticking out the driver's right side of that rear wing, in addition to the camera on top of the air intake, probably because they couldn't get a helicopter up to get a very good view of it, although we have seen a couple of inboards in this race. Not one from the world champion recently. We'll be back to Spain in a moment. Welcome back to Spain, where the rain has fallen mainly on the racetrack all day long, and Michael Schumacher, dealing with it as only a 2-time Formula One World Driving Champion should, keep the right foot down, sort things out with the steering wheel.
Whoa, he's really still really on song. He's really giving it heaps the whole time. But I would imagine he's really enjoying it.
I bet he is.
Yeah, it looks like he is. When you get the tail out like that, if he had an understeer problem, that is when it's nasty. But he seems to get that tail out and he's sliding it through there on the same line every time. He takes the wide line through the corners like you can see him there. So he's picking up the dry part of the circuit. A lot of the time he's following the same line the whole way through the race. He hasn't deterred from it at all. He knows exactly where the track is drier.
He has kept it on the racetrack while those around him have spun off. 6 cars remain in the race. Everyone will pick up points if they stay in. In fact, at this point, since the 7th car has been out of the race so long, I suspect those 6 cars will get points no matter what.
Jacques is closing here on Jean Alesi, but it makes you wonder whether there's anything he can do about it if he gets any closer. He won't be able to see when he gets any closer, and I'm sure Alesi will find, or make sure that Jacques finds this car is extremely wide.
Mika Hakkinen's stricken McLaren going out the bottom of your screen. Not a whole lot to see today on a very dismal, rainy, gray day. Jean Alesi with a very small gap over Jacques Villeneuve. The Canadian apparently is prepared to battle for those second place points. 2 points separate second from third. Villeneuve certainly wants them to try to stay ahead of Michael Schumacher, who will almost certainly pick up 10 points today for the victory.
Jacques has driven a superb race. It's been a great learning race for him. He's had a good weekend, in fact. He's been up there all the time in qualifying. He's much happier at this racetrack. But let's face it, he only did 1 day's testing here, but nonetheless, 1 day in my book is a lot of time. And he had a lot of testing here in that day, so which certainly would have helped him when he got out there for first practice the other day. 6 laps remaining.
you see the time remaining. Villeneuve closes up on Alesi.
Still would have been interested to know why Schumacher went in that second pit stop. It certainly cost him 30 seconds. Well, I guess there was probably something with an imbalance somewhere, just an imbalance in the tyres, and that was just enough to make him make his mind up. I'm going to go in. Because when you get that imbalance coming in, a vibration from one end of the car or the other, the only thing it probably could be, the thing you hope it is the tyres. It's the one thing you can change. There's nothing else you can change quickly. So you come in, change the tyres, and hope that then the vibration's gone, because if it hasn't gone, you have something wrong a little bit more terminal. So that's probably what he did, and it's a great peace of mind when you put the tyres on, storm out the road, up the road, and find out that the car does not vibrate anymore. Conditions don't look any better, do they, Bob?
Absolutely. As you watch these cars go around on their rain tires, that adds another element to the tire situation in Formula One, as you see the gap. Of course, by now, Formula One fans know that as soon as next year, Bridgestone is expected to be in Formula One. They say 1998. Most folks think it'll be 1997. With Michelin and even the Italian Pirelli company thinking about jumping back into Formula One. And of course, we talk about race rubber. There have been a lot of discussions about whether they'll be allowed to use qualifying tires. The answer appears to be no. Mixed rubber compounds, so that you have a sticky, soft compound that wears away to reveal a harder compound underneath. Understand that one has been turned thumbs down as well. But we haven't talked much about rain tires. And of course, anybody who comes into the sport will have to be prepared to equip 60% of the field, not only with dry tires, but with wets as well. It could be a very crowded paddock in the near future in Formula One if we have 4 companies providing tires to what at this point is 11 teams. There's the running order. There also is the entire field. We'll be back. We are back in Spain. Going to break, we gave you an incorrect running order with Villeneuve ahead of Alesi. There is the correct order. Alesi still leads the Canadian Williams-Renault driver, but not by much. There is Alesi. And just behind him is Jacques Villeneuve. He's running out of time. There's Villeneuve to the upper right of your screen. Running out of time to make a move if in fact he intends to. Hakkinen still circulating slowly in the McLaren. He will pick up points as only 6 cars remain in the running of the 20 that started this race almost 2 hours ago. Coming around to complete another lap, Jacques Villeneuve. Meanwhile, well out front is the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher, going for his 20th career Grand Prix victory and the 106th. Illustrious history of the Ferrari brand. Engine revs peaking a little bit as the tires break free at the rear. You see the lap comparisons. Actually, Alesi on that last lap going a bit quicker, almost more than a full second quicker than Villeneuve. So the Frenchman showing that he apparently can keep the Williams at bay. It's been like this all day long here in Spain. Very, very wet, very treacherous. Less than 6 minutes remain in the race. The Ferrari team beginning to anticipate a checkered flag for their man. A lot of folks wondered whether it was worth it to spend $25 million a year to get the double defending world champion Michael Schumacher into the team. But apparently, it will pay off. He puts the car on pole, which is worth untold amounts of free exposure for sponsors and the Ferrari brand around the world on the sports pages every Sunday morning. You see the Ferrari up front, and then the race, if he can win, once again, he makes it worth that $25 million.
And not only that, of course, he puts so much input into the team. He works day after day after day testing. He has tremendous feedback for the team. The fact that they had a brand new car, a brand new engine, and he's brought the package together to go out there and do astonishingly good times. And of course, we've even seen Eddie Irvine doing some great times, some great lap times in qualifying with this setup, considering how little time he's had in the car. So the whole package is good. Schumacher just is like the icing on the cake and manages to really squeeze that extra bit out of it, as only world champions do.
right. Great athletes raise everyone's game around them. And speaking of great athletes, check out the USA boxing team later today from the Pontchartrain Center in Kenner, Louisiana at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Amateur boxing as the USA takes on the world in preparation for the Summer Olympic Games of 1996 in Atlanta, Georgia. Check it out. The USA versus Germany in amateur boxing tonight at 10:30 p.m. on ESPN2. Here in Spain, the crowd still in their seats with umbrellas overhead. Absolutely miserable weather for spectating. If you've spent nearly $200 just on your seat, you certainly want to stay through to the end. And why not? You're watching one of the masters of the sport at work. And years from now, we're all going to want to say, we were there when Michael Schumacher was driving for Ferrari. I expect he will complete one more lap and then begin the final lap of this race under the 2-hour time limit that will stop us short of the scheduled 65 for the second race in succession. Formula One beginning a very wet European season. The next stop will be the Grand Prix of Canada from the Ile de Notre Dame, the circuit named for Jacques Villeneuve's late father, Gilles Villeneuve. We hope you'll join us for that. That's Michael Schumacher's wife, Corinna.
It certainly will be an historic moment if he manages to get these next couple of laps under his belt. It's been a long, long time, in my recollection, since a German driver won in a Ferrari. What about that, Bob?
My goodness. Well, I remember Wolfgang von Trips. If we want to go back to the 60s.
Well, that's the last I can remember.
I think that's true. Niki Lauda was Austrian. Michael Schumacher is certainly the class of his generation of Formula One drivers. And as others have said before, one of the real tragic aspects of the passing of the late Ayrton Senna a couple of years ago at Imola in a racing crash was the fact that we were deprived of the opportunity to watch he and Schumacher do battle.
It would have been unbelievable to have seen those two together. I mean, one can only just surmise what it would have been, but they're on a class of their own, both of them, aren't they? They're way out there. Whatever you say, whatever Vittori says about his drivers, Schumacher in that Benetton could win this race. And we saw him do it last year. Here he is in a Ferrari, and his guys can't stay there.
Now we begin the final lap for Michael Schumacher, bringing Ferrari to the winner's circle once again after nearly a year's absence. As only he can do. Now, checking timing and scoring, it appears this is the 65th lap, so what do you know? We did get it in to the 2-hour time limit. There's the gap, Alesi to Villeneuve. The Canadian running out of time to take his shot at second place. At this point, all credit to Michael Schumacher, who is bringing Ferrari back to the glory it once knew.
There'll be some Lambrusco drunk tonight, let me tell you.
That's right. The church bells will chime across the square from the factory in Modena, as they have pealed over the years for Ferrari victories. They might knock a little dust off them. It's been a while since they rang. But with an absolutely astounding performance in brutal conditions, Michael Schumacher has shown, as if there was any doubt, why he is the reigning world champion. The crowd will be on its feet, because no matter where in the world you go, there are the Tifosi, the legendary fans of the Ferrari brand. Now the team, including wife Corinna right there, goes out to the pit wall to welcome their man home. A well-earned victory for Michael Schumacher in round 7 of the 1996 World Championship, and with it, 10 all-important points that will boost him closer to Damon Hill as they continue their rivalry. Once more down the hill, past the pit entrance. The right-hander on which he spun a couple of years ago in a race. Coming down to 0 seconds on the clock. A huge roar goes up for Michael Schumacher as the checkered flag waves in Spain.
Absolutely superb for the whole team.
A year ago, he lost many of the gears in his gearbox, drove this race mostly in third gear in the closing stages. There is Jean Alesi, behind him the third place car of Jacques Villeneuve. Michael Michael Schumacher, definitely one of a kind. There's Alesi heading downhill behind Pedro Diniz, the 6th place car.
Alesi's had as hard a race as anybody.
And that is an important victory, or excuse me, an important 2nd place finish for Jean Alesi as he tries to pull his reputation back together after a rough start to the year, including a lot of collisions and trips off the racetrack. But the joy is in the Ferrari pits once again. We'll be back to wrap things up from Spain. Welcome back live to Spain, where Michael Schumacher has picked up his 20th career victory. There you see the remainder of the drivers' point standings. The results, only 6 cars running on the racetrack. Michael Schumacher picks up the victory, running in 2nd place, Jean Alesi. Jacques Villeneuve finishes 3rd, followed by Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Mika Hakkinen, and Pedro Diniz. Those were all the cars running at the end. In the Drivers' Championship, Damon Hill, who crashed out of the race early, retains his overall lead. Take a look at the cars that dropped out of the race. Michael Schumacher, however, is beginning to mount a charge. He is now tied with Jacques Villeneuve for 2nd place. Behind Damon Hill was Jean Alesi in 3rd. In the Constructors' Championship, Williams remains out front. Once again, Benetton closing up on Ferrari. Picked up 10 points from the victory for Michael Schumacher. Our next stop on the globetrotting Formula One World Championship will be the Grand Prix